And how's it going, everyone? And welcome to No Fun Allowed. Today, you're joined by an incredibly special guest, award-winning author. You might recognize her excellent works from such things as Xanthoria, what we're going to talk about later on, Potbellied Kobold, and many other fine works you can find. All the links will be flashing around. Toni Winslow Brill, go ahead and say hi to everyone.
Hi, everybody.
All
I'm glad to be
righty.
here. It'll be fun.
I hope so. So today we're going to be talking about all the amazing and awesome stuff you have done for our awesome community and all of the great things you've been getting up to and will be getting into in the future. So to kick this whole thing off, you have done some incredibly awesome work here. You are just pumping out content for a few years now, but of course it is really coming to light. You are now an official member of the community of writing for the Wizards of the Coast, which is an awesome prestige to have. You're now appearing in all these Kickstarters and stuff. So the thing is you didn't start off as this. You started off much like everybody else, just doing what you love. So how did you start your writing career?
So I started writing at least adventures a long time ago. I don't necessarily want to tell you when. No, I'm kidding. Makes me sound old. No, in a more formal capacity, I started doing writing adventures with things of Living Greyhawk. So when Living Greyhawk, which was 3.5, came out, I was writing quite a few adventures at that point. So I even got paid for one of them, and then they stopped paying authors at that point. It was a whole $50.
Hey, that's $50 better than most, right?
Right? Yeah, shortly thereafter, they were like, meh. So, and I think we split it, or maybe the $50 was the split. It's a long time ago. I don't even remember now. So it might have been $100, and then because I wrote it with a friend of mine, and so.
Yeah, and that was the whole lineup that you had of the HIG series, Fistful of Grain, Intertwined, Familiar Territory,
Correct.
Fairly Moot, all that classic stuff there. So you started off doing this for 3.5, and you're just pumping out all this content. But the thing is did you start doing this just because you wanted to, or did someone push you into it? How did that whole process start out?
So I actually, so I did that stuff, and then, 5e came around, and we, switched to 5e, and I actually took a couple years away from gaming, about 2 years or so, because of my husband had passed away, and so I kind of needed to deal with that sort of thing first. And then I came back, and when I came back, I went to a wedding, some friends of mine, and they were like, "Hey, you really should start writing again. You did a good job, and we always liked it." And I was like, "Oh well." They're like, "No, you should do it. There's this thing that you can, you should apply for this." And it was just a small sort of thing for Adventures League, actually. And I was like, "Oh, yeah, you know what? I think I can do that. Sure. I'll do it." So I did that, and they ended up hiring me. So I ended up writing. And then once I started, it just kind of kept going from there. And I kept putting myself out, or people would reach out and say, "Hey, we saw your stuff and we really enjoyed it. Would you please be willing to do whatever?" And I was like, "Sure." So I'm still trying to learn to say no a little bit more. Because I do have a full-time regular job, plus, I'm raising a daughter, and you know what I mean? I don't have enough time.
Oh yeah, I imagine that there's a lot of things going into that. So in regards to that, did you go to school for writing, or is this just a natural talent, something you picked up over time? How
I actually have an English degree. I do have a
Heck
degree
yeah.
in literary theory, actually, because it was 2 credits different. I'd already taken some, then creative writing. So I took all the same stuff for creative writing, but I wanted to be done sooner. So literary theory was it. So, but I didn't, all my jobs and things have been in finance. And so after my husband had passed away, I was like, you know what? Life's too short, and I want to do something that I am good at. And So I kind of ratcheted back on a lot of the other things I was doing and then kind of put more of my focus into the writing. So,
Yeah, and
which
the
was good.
work.
And it seems to have worked out.
Yeah, the work clearly shows you got an impressive lineup there, and you're obviously shooting to the stars and beyond right now. So the thing is you go to college and you're getting this fine degree and all that, but presumably that has nothing to do with D&D. Or does it? How did you get started in D&D?
So I got started when I was pretty young. I actually went to my first Gen Con when I was 10 years old.
Wow.
And just because I was a very voracious reader and I chose fantasy, that was my thing. I would read like all these like fantasy and myths, different kinds of mythology. And my cousin, who lived across the street from me, was also into that stuff. So we would just trade back and forth and do all this stuff. And when I was 10 years old, we lived maybe an hour south of, like an hour and a half south of Milwaukee at that time. And my mom was like, hey, I heard of this thing. I don't know what it is, but it sounds like something you and your cousin Phil would be interested in. Do you guys want to go if I take you? And I was like, yeah. So then after that, I kind of was enamored of it and we went every year. So usually just at the dealer hall though. It's like be one day and we go like try games, do a lot of the demos and stuff. So it was pretty fun. And then we had just started playing D&D on our own at that point, right before that. So my cousin's like, hey, I found this new game and it's super cool. And it was Mech Warrior.
Oh, heck yeah.
So, and then we kind of shifted into D&D a little bit, maybe 6 months after that. And did both, but, so. And then I just didn't stop.
Yeah, so when you're doing this, are you writing for these games that you're playing in or DMing, or are you just, along for the ride?
It depends. It really depends on what the project is and who it's for. So sometimes I'll be just along for the ride, and other times I'll be working as I go.
Yeah, in regard to that then, so you get started playing early on, but do you start DMing, or do you continue to be a player for these formative years?
So we took turns because at the time there was only 2 of us.
Okay.
And so, especially at first, and even then, even as we got older, that pattern of between me and my friends, we try to alternate, although I end up tending to do most of the judging or was doing most of it, on and off here and there. And then when pandemic hit and we switched to virtual, I'm doing all of it. So, which is fine and some of my friends are they're like, nope, I don't want to even do online. So, which is fine. I get it. It's to me, it's a lot harder and it takes a lot more work to do it online. And it doesn't quite have the same draw.
It hit differently, for sure.
Yeah, it's very different. And it's still fun, but it's different. So
yeah, unfortunate time in our lives where our nerding society has been plagued, as it were. But you of course have incorporated that into your works, but we'll be getting into that later. So you get pressured into writing, and you eventually start writing for these 3.5s, and then you eventually double back and start writing for the Adventures League. When you're doing these writings, were you drawing upon older works? Were you stockpiling some work and you just edited it all properly? What was your writing method here?
So it depends. Again, I do have a book. Do I have it right here? No, I don't. That I just write down ideas in for, like, hey, this is a cool idea, or this is this will be a fun thing if I ever get to doing it. And I just write down quick, so I don't forget, because I will forget otherwise. And that's actually was one of the ideas was what I used for Xanthoria. But a lot of times when you're hired as a writer, you are hired to write a very specific sort of thing. Especially now in 3-5 days, it was kind of, hey, just make sure you fit into the plot and we don't care. Nowadays, it's much more, here's your outline, here's what you need to write, go. You get some leeway depending on the project, but it's not as much. It's much more professional now, too. Way more professional. So the Potbellied Kobold was another instance. They were like, write whatever you want. We don't care. Even Candlekeep, they were like, it needs to be based on a mystery and based on a book. In Candlekeep, go. We don't care. So, but a lot of other times, like I said, so it depends on who you're doing the writing for and what they really expect out of things. I've done some things in the past for like just monster creation. Even then, they were like, here's an artwork. We want this to be, high level, low level. Make it, super detailed. We want it as an NPC versus a monster, or, they have to, there's a lot of communication that has to happen. So that you know what you're writing, because otherwise you're going to get something that's not good or not what they need.
I've talked to several authors now, and the thing that is always curious to me is a lot of people seem to be split on, do you prefer creative freedom or do you prefer to have a structure and someone overlooking your works? I'm curious what your take on that is.
I actually prefer to have creative freedom. For me, it is I can do the other way, but it is a little bit harder for me to be in that box, I guess.
Okay.
Just because things change as I write. I'll be like, oh, this is such a cool idea. Change the whole thing. And you can't do that if you are, constrained by what, if they want something super detailed and very specific.
Okay. So you're putting out all these works over the course of time, these smaller adventures and some more sizable ones later on as well. How has your work changed over time? Do you see your writing style change significantly? Do you see that your method on planning things out change? What is how would you compare yourself then versus now?
So and it is something I struggle with to this day, honestly, but I am very verbose. I get overly, excited and descriptive and whatever. And that is something that I have managed to pare down. But for me, when I'm writing, sometimes I get overly concerned with covering everything that might happen instead of just letting because I worry about the new DM, I guess. So a good DM will be able to take the pieces in whatever they're running and disregard what they need and take what they need. But a new DM or a young DM, if they don't have that base and they don't have that instruction, they struggle. And that's, they need to learn. So I would rather there be too much information than not enough, I guess. And so that is something that I have had to kind of try to work on and get over a little bit, especially for some newer things. I'll be like, oh, if they do this, then you got to have this. And I don't need all that. And it's not even a matter of trusting the DM. It's more a matter, like I said, of helping those who are new or first time or trying to do it. Because like I said, if you're experienced, you're going to be able to be fine, even if there's too much information. So that, and, so I'm trying to pare down on my descriptions, trying to, kind of cut out that I don't have to plan for every contingency. I wrote some of those older ones that you had mentioned. One of them was like 170 some pages.
Wow.
I had a lot of information.
Oh, yeah.
They needed it. I decided they needed it.
There's a lot to plan for in D&D.
Right? I keep things a little bit more neat and tidy. Like I used to just like write little things on like a piece of paper and stick them wherever, and I have note things all over. But now I have a notepad specific for just ideas, and then another notepad to like write things out, that sort of thing. So much more organized, making it I also now do outlines. I never used to do outlines because they bothered me half the time. Because I'd be like, well, it's like the same as just writing it down. And sometimes I don't always use them, but if I have to plan a lot of moving pieces, I need to know where they're going to go in an adventure. Like, okay, so this has to happen in the first part at least, and then I'll break it out into pieces, parts at least, if nothing else, and be like, okay, so it's got 2 parts and it's going to have like 3 or 4 or 5 encounters, and this has to happen before this. And so I'll plan that out.
Okay.
Whereas I didn't used to.
Do you, over the course of time, do you see yourself, you make these outlines now. Do you also have a plan of, I need to write this many words a day, I need to have this idea drawn up by this day? Or do you kind of just keep it going and, just make sure you're not falling behind?
Someday, when I have not deadlines always looming, I will do it the but right now, I'm like, okay, this is due this day. I got to get it done by that day. So I just will set a time versus a word count. I'll be like, all right, I need to spend, 4 hours today or whatever working on this. I took half a day from work, or do you know what I mean? And then I'll do that, but I try to do something every day.
Okay.
But I don't set like a word count. Like I got to do, 10,000 words a day or whatever crazy thing.
That would be impressive.
Some people do that,
Oh.
So
I'm struggling just to get 1,000. Jeez Louise. So, in regards to that, do you have any idea of how long it takes for you to write up any one of these adventures that you do, any one of these smaller modules that you do, or is it just you get it done when you get it done?
It's again the deadline and when I have been given it. I can actually write an adventure in relatively a short amount of time. I don't like to because that's stressful. God. But I've written them in 3 days before.
Wow.
And they, 40 pages, 3 days. Go.
Wow.
With stat blocks and everything. So I don't like to do that. It's very stressful. But I have done it. Even a month is a little tight sometimes depending on the scope of the project, but that's pretty typical. I seem because I get handed a lot of high level stuff and we don't have, or last like, hey, this person flaked out on us or whatever, and now we have nobody. Can you finish this or start it? They're great. Start it. It's due in 4 days. Go. No. So it's fine. But if I were to work like kind of on my own without like needing a deadline, it would take me maybe 3 months because I like to think about things. I like to write and then I like to put the words down and then put it aside for a little bit and think about it and then come back to it, because then I think my writing is better. Instead, then I can be like, oh, you know what? I don't like this wording or this is confusing, now that I'm coming back to it, kind of a thing. So
yeah, it sounds like the industry is consistently inconsistent with how much time you're given for writing up any one of these projects.
Absolutely. And it totally depends on the company and who it is. Now, the bigger companies give you a lot of time. So Candlekeep was 2 years ago. Like, we started the process, I should say, 2 years ago. Turned in final draft was last April, March, I think. Last March or April. So it's a long time to keep a secret, just so you know.
Yeah, you're sitting on. I've been talking about all these with these other authors about all these Kickstarters or Woods of the Coast and how you are sitting on something for months or years and you're just sitting there waiting for this thing to come out. And some people, if they write so much, they might even forget that things are coming out. And,
yes.
And I guess that can lead us into the next thing, your Adventures of the Potbellied Kobold. You were a writer on that. Is there anything you want to talk about? Or is it too brand new and you don't want to reveal anything spicy?
No, it is spicy. Oh, no, I'm kidding. I was thinking about this. Both Xanthoria and the Adventure in the Potbellied Kobold are kind of horror themed. So I must have been in a mood because they were written around the same sort of time. But again, that's a lower level adventure. So that was fun just because, again, it was an idea that I had. So if they are like, whatever you want to write, then I can go through my notebook and be like, hey, I want to write, this or, whatnot. But that was nicer because it wasn't, tier 3 or 4 or whatever. Even tier 2 sometimes. But I was like, just like, oh yes, because it is easier to write lower level adventure than a higher level adventure. Not the story part, but the mechanics part are much more involved when you're writing a higher level adventure, especially one that's not made for like your particular home group, because the abilities of your home group. What they can do, what they can't, what they're like, that kind of thing. If you're writing something for general consumption, you've got to balance that, hey, my home group is a bunch of power gamers or whatever, so this difficulty might be too much for the average person, or, things of that sort. And so it kind of, it's a different mindset that you got to take.
Yeah, and you're sitting there thinking to yourself, like, oh, they can go up against 3 mummy lords? Like, is that right? Like,
yeah, you're like, boom! Did I get you? Yeah. Oh.
So it sounds like, though, that you are being tagged for some higher level stuff. Is that just a reputation that you're building up in the community, that you are a pinch hitter in the higher tier play, or is that
apparently? Because I was like, I was like, it'd be nice to be asked to do some other stuff once in a while. Not that I don't mind, but I'm just like, So Xanthoria originally was written for 20th level, because originally the book was going to go higher, and then we just readjusted once they decided to pull it up to just 16. So it was the mechanics were much different.
Oh yes.
Originally, so it's fine, because there is a big power curve even from 16 and up. Each level it ramps up, obviously. So.
Oh, for sure. All those higher level, level 20 abilities. Paladins can do all that crazy thing. The wizards casting wish every other second. All that crazy stuff. And
yeah, simulacrums. People if they have a simulacrum, that's really annoying. I've decided. I recently I ran a playtest, or not a playtest. I ran Candlekeep Xanthoria for some friends of mine this last week, and one of them had a simulacrum and pretty much just cast counterspell constantly. And I was like, okay.
Now I've got to get someone that can counterspell the counterspell.
Yeah, I was like, noted. Like, I was like, okay, we're gonna have to deal with that. And they were just 16th level, so.
Yeah, so in regards to Xanthoria, absolutely awesome product. I've ran it. I've had an absolute blast. I can't wait to run it some more, because I love the theme. I love the crazy monsters in there. And, you talked about this before, but you had this horror kind of moment, maybe a few months of wanting to get in this theme. I assume that this was partially on the idea of COVID, but it's not. But you started writing before COVID was a thing.
It was before COVID, so I was like, "Ooh, it's a little on the money, isn't it?"
And yeah, you're writing out this adventure, and was there any outside influences as you're writing this thing, or was it just of your own mind and volition?
It was mostly of my own mind and volition. I'd had this idea for a while. And I wanted to kind of write an adventure with an emotional impact. I wanted to kind of have that punch a little bit, and kind of make the party conflicted. And so my adventure originally was much darker. And I was like,
darker than it is now?
Yeah. I was like, that might be too far. So I kind of ratcheted it back, and kind of I don't want to ruin some of it right now, but some of the main theme and sort of the end was a little bit it had a more personal tie to the main bad guy.
Okay.
So it was fun.
Yeah, so over the course of these years of writing, what do you think of now, having worked with the top dog in this official sense of getting your face, name, and your ideas out there on the big book?
I was pretty excited. I mean, honestly, when they sent me an email asking if I would be interested in a project, They didn't tell me what it was or anything like that. And I was like, I thought it was like a spam. I thought it was a joke. I was like, because I received it from Chris Perkins, and I was like,
no,
okay.
That can't be real.
It's not real. I mean, but it was. And so that was cool. I had a really good experience. They were very, I'm not shy, if you can't tell. And so if I had a question, I was more than willing to ask it. So I was like, okay, how is this function? How does this work? I got a lot of information about like Candlekeep itself. They sent, packets of information. Once we signed all our NDAs and all that good stuff, they like the beginning part of the book itself, all about the Candlekeep stuff. We got that. We also received the Book of the Raven, which had already been written at that point, as an example, which was also immensely helpful for me, so that I could physically see what they wanted, and then they send out like, here's your formatting and here's your templates. But if I had a question, I'd be like, is it like, one of my questions was, do stat blocks count in my word count? Because I really wanted to make up a new monster. I really did. And I had that idea for that for a long time. And I was like, I would like to do that. By the way, they do count in your word count.
Yeah,
so
I mean, you were only allotted what, 6,000 words in total?
8. I believe it was 8. Yeah. So I had to pack a lot in a smaller space then, because again, a high level monster takes up a lot more space than a lower level one, especially when you're making, because they have a lot more abilities and things. So. Oh
yeah. Yeah, so in regard to that, you're told, hey, you're hopping on, you're going to make this level 20 adventure, and then eventually it gets, knocked down to 16. But in regards of that, are you talking with the other content creators, or are you just plugging away on your own and trying to hammer out 8,000 beautiful, pristine words and stat blocks?
So in this instance, we did not talk with the other authors. I did not even know who was on board with this project until much later. Okay. So, and they asked, my understanding is they asked a lot. They asked a larger pan of people, and I knew this as they went, but I didn't know who they were. And then as we went, they paired people off. So you turned in an outline, and then they would say, okay, we're interested in your outline or not. And then people, kind of got dropped off if they weren't. And then you had to turn in, like, tell them an idea. Then you had to turn in an outline. Then you had to do a rough draft. And each of these stages, they could decline to continue your work. Okay. And so I was like, the whole time, I'm like, oh, keep going. Come on, next one. Do I get the next part? So, and like at the point with the rough draft, they were like, all right, here's, just like anything, here's some changes that we think that you should make, or we would like you to make, we think this would make for a better, and we talk a little bit back and forth because, hey, well, this is why I did that. And, kind of a little bit back and forth. And then even up to the point of your rough draft or your final draft, they could take your final draft or not. And then even if they took your final draft, there was no guarantee that it was going to make it into the book. But they paid you at that point. If your final draft got accepted, then they, paid you or whatever else. So, I mean, then I was still like, oh God, did I get in? Because I knew there was more than what they took. I did get to find out a little bit early that it was going to be in the book, because I am also on a playtest group for Wizards of the Coast. And so they're like, here, playtest these adventures. And I'm like, I know that one.
Playtest yourself, your own work.
Yeah. I'm like, I already playtested it to make sure that stuff worked the way I was thinking it was going to work. And some things didn't. And that's part of why you playtest things.
Absolutely.
But my group all has NDAs because we're on the other playtest group. So I could actually, playtest it with them.
Yeah, that is an unfortunate thing about the writing process, is your darlings do get killed off. And that's something that we haven't talked about for your other previous works, is Do you do your own editorial work, or do you sit there and share it to your friends, or do you have a full-time editor? What is your go-to with that?
So it depends on what I am writing. I always feel like someone else's eyes should be on your work. I mean, even if you like, I do a lot of editing. I do tons, um, and a lot of times that's what I end up getting hired for. But if it's your own work, you're not going to necessarily, even typos and little things, you're not going to necessarily see because it's going to say what you want it to say and what you think in your brain it says, whether that's reality or not. So I always try to have somebody else's eyes, at least one other person look at my stuff, and we go through content and typos and things like that. Now, I do work for Ballman Games, so I'm a trilogy lead, which means I work on a lot of their Moonshade stuff. And so we pick the authors. I do up the detailed outlines for those, and then they write them, and I work with them and get those all set. And then I am the one who does the editing for those as well then at that point. So a lot of work then.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you are going overtime with this. Literally, you have a full-time job, you got a kid, and you're doing this all writing. That sounds like a absolute, monstrous hill to climb. So
it keeps me out of trouble during COVID times.
You need some excuse to keep away from everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any words for anybody that is trying to get into the writing game? Any words of wisdom? Any people to aspire to? Anything to look at?
I don't know. I think that there's a pretty good online community of writers who are more than willing to share tidbits and thoughts and ideas, or just kind of help people. And so don't be shy and ask. Don't be even if you think that, the worst case scenario, they're not going to be able to help you, but most of them will absolutely do so. The other thing I would say is put yourself out there. I mean, do it. Just do it. Even if you don't think it's good, put it on the DMs Guild or put it on, Drive Through RPGA. Just do something and put it out there. And the more you do it, the better you'll get. So I think that is the biggest roadblock for people, is the actual, putting it out there, because it's hard. Hey, I created this thing and now other people are going to look at it. Especially if it's new and you're not sure. So that would be the biggest thing is just do the thing and just ask. People will help you out. I mean, I know I will help you out if I, absolutely. Hey, if I can.
Alrighty. Yeah.
Don't do things for exposure. Don't do that either.
Okay.
Make sure you value what you're doing.
No clickbaits in the DMs Guild there.
Right? Well, people are like, hey, will you edit this for free? Because, I'm new and starting, and yeah, you get that, but again, you can't. Your time is also valuable.
Yeah. I think that there's definitely a healthy level of respect to, both give and receive in our community. And you put yourself out there and you talk to all these people and someone's willing to help you, but you obviously got to be giving them something in return. So only fair.
Absolutely.
So, we're talking about all the amazing things coming out from, Wizards of the Coast, from the community, from yourself. So I'm curious about what you want to see next. What do you want to see next from Wizards of the Coast?
From Wizards of the Coast, I don't know. I feel like they kind of have it down right now. They are, each of their books is different. You know what I mean? They're not all players options, and they're not all, world things, and they're not all, I do like the idea of the anthology books that they've put out of adventures, because if you're anything like me, sometimes you're too busy to actually do something for your home group or whatever. And so those are nice because you can take them and tweak them, or you have a starting point where you just run them as is, And so I like that idea, and I hope that they continue to do that. Not even as a campaign, I mean, it's great because they have the campaign books and those are awesome. But I think that the kind of one-off things are also nice sometimes to have. But I mean, I'm looking forward to the Von Richten's book. That looks cool.
Oh yes.
Like, woo, that looks awesome.
Oh heck yes.
So it's kind of fun just to see what they're, as they come out, what they're doing with things, and I don't feel like they're overloading like TSR used to with the amount of books.
Only like what, 15, 20 books a year, that's all?
Yeah, right? It's like, okay, I can't keep up.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what led to TSR's downfall there. So hopefully Wizards doesn't fall into that same trap. 3 or 4 books a year is perfectly fine, in my opinion.
Yes. I mean, you can get greedy and want more, but they got to be smart too. And it seems like they're doing that. And then there can be more excitement for when a book comes out. I do think that they are doing a pretty good job of showing their authors and saying, hey, look, these people did this and check it out, and giving the people who do their work for them more exposure and the kind of the accolades that they need. And like for Candlekeep, I thought it was awesome. This is a pet peeve of mine. They put the editors in there for each adventure. I was like, that is great, because a lot of people, it's a lot. It's easily just as much work.
The unsung heroes of the community.
Right. And so I was like, oh, these people, look at what they did. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Incredible stuff coming out from Wizard of the Coast and from the community that's contributing to it. And me personally, I love shorter adventures. I don't need a 50 to 100 session campaign. Just give me a few sessions of a nice little dungeon delve or something, and I'm happy. Yeah. What do you want to see next from the community?
I don't know. This community is so big that I feel like it's out there already. You know what I mean? Like there's so much out there. And if you go and look, it's a little overwhelming, actually, on some level.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, what do I want? Am I looking for a horror thing? And that also, on some level, makes it harder to find the really good stuff, too, because of the amount of stuff, which is awesome. I mean, that is a good problem to have. Too much stuff. I mean, really. But I think everybody has, found their niche and kind of are doing what they want to do. And, there's a little bit of something already out there, so just do what you want to do, I mean,
yeah, we're seeing the rise of Kickstarters and these companies that are pumping out these either big adventures, small adventures, or just D&D products, and of course you are a part of that, so you know all about it, that the community is self-driving. Eventually the community is going to potentially even overshadow Wizards of the Coast because there's so much out there,
Yes, and that's such a neat idea to me.
Yeah. You don't see that with the movie industry, right? You don't see that with video games. Or maybe you do.
Maybe a little, I guess. Little.
But indie games are popping off for sure these days. And I love the indie content that's coming out for D&D. And lastly, what do you want to see coming out from yourself?
I have that whole notebook of ideas. I would actually like to put some of them to paper and flesh them out a little bit more. Like some of them are just like, hey, I had this cool dream and this one little idea popped in my head. And I'm just, for those kind of things, sometimes I can still work them into an adventure if they're not like the whole plot or whatever. But I've got a lot of us like, these are some cool ideas. And, I would like to use them like I sometimes it's just a title. Like I have a title. Nobody steal this. I'll be mad.
We're trademarking it right now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be called Bane of Existence, and it's gonna be something about Bane. I haven't decided what. I just was like, I like my title. That doesn't usually happen, by the way. Usually,
if anybody steals anything of that, we're coming for you. We're suing you.
Right, I'll be mad. So I've just got things that I want to be able to actually use, but finding the time, or if I do find the time, honestly, sometimes I'm like, I just don't want to. I'm gonna sit here and watch TV for mindlessly for like whatever. I need a break.
Yeah.
So.
That's another thing that we struggle with is finding the time and effort, and sometimes even the money to justify it. But
Yeah.
once you get there, once you do it, then it's definitely rewarding. And I can't wait to see Bane of Existence popping up in the year 2024, maybe 25.
Yeah, it was like someday.
Someday.
Someday I'll get that out there. So I
Alrighty.
kind of have a couple ideas for it, but
Heck yeah. I mean,
I'm
hey,
just like, oh,
yeah, you know what? I know people are going to be, pushing you to do that now that you put it out there. So
good, because I kind of need it sometimes, kicking the butt.
that's
Go,
absolutely awesome
come
to hear.
on.
So yeah, it's been an absolute blast talking to you about all this amazing stuff. So go ahead and sell yourself. Go ahead and tell us what you're doing, where to find you, and all that fun stuff.
Okay. Well, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I don't use Instagram quite as much as Twitter. I'm trying to be better about it, but and you can find me at Vorgrith, VORGRYTH, and same as on Discord. The other things, like I said, I just did Count Keep Mysteries. The Potbellied Kobold by Jeff Stevens Games is just, the book has just come out, the Kickstarter out, but you can buy the book both on Amazon and Drive Through RPG. You can do that. I do have quite a few Adventure League adventures going out there. I just released Moment of Peace, which is a Dream of the Red Wizard storyline, which is a higher level storyline. Tier 3 is that adventure. So higher level again. I do have other projects in the works, but those are all NDAs and secret because everybody does an NDA now. But I do a lot of stuff with Baldman Games for the Moonshay for Adventures League. And we are pumping a bunch of those out, and we are getting them up on the DMs Guild finally. Working with wonderful Eric Minge and some of my other trilogy leads to be able to do that. So I'm taking over for Eric, actually. So for next year, season 12, whatever, season 11. Season 11. We're on 10 right now. So sometimes the stuff is I'm ahead because I know what's going ahead, and then I'm like, where are we?
All that insider knowledge, it's hard to keep track of.
Sometimes I was like, okay, whatever season we're on. So, we'll be doing that, and that'll be fun. So I've got lots of little things. I actually took some time. I didn't accept any new projects for a span of like a couple months here, 4 months, because I broke my ankle and my leg by just tripping and falling down my stairs. So that was great. I'm still dealing with that. I really messed my foot up. I landed like a cat on my feet. I was all impressed with myself. And then I 5 seconds later, I was like, something is really bad. Like something is wrong. And then my house flooded. So I've been I was like, I'm not taking any writing jobs until that is dealt with, all this stuff. So kind of at the point where I'm catching up. And so I think pretty soon in the next month or so, I'm going to be opening up back up for commissions. So,
all right.
And things like that.
Here's hoping to a quick and happy recovery and a non-flooded house. And
that was not cool.
And I hope everything works out because you're pumping out amazing content, and I can't wait to see more of it. That is going to do it for us. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. I cannot wait to see you all in the next one.
Thank you for having me.
Absolute blast. Thank you.